So this company has built this mammoth social media operation that is mostly pushing out nonsense content or clickbaity, stupid content that is working to attract clicks. But they're now starting to integrate into that content pro-Russian happy talk fake history material and some oddly sort of subtle anti-U.S. stuff. Like this video, which suggests that the United States is one of the top 10 countries in the world that's most likely to not exist anymore within the next 20 years. Because the United States is going to disappear. At least Alaska and Texas are definitely going to secede, but that's probably only the beginning. And they don't portray this as some screed against the United States. It's just tucked in among all the other countries that might no longer exist sometime soon. As Lisa Kaplan argues at Lawfare this week in this investigative piece, one of the things to watch here is that as this huge Russian social media presence has been developed in the United States, they've started doing this pro-Russia, undermining the U.S. sort of subtle content. And they've started poking around the edges of buying overtly political content about U.S. politics that, in the future, if it tests well, they could presumably decide to ship to their gazillions of online followers. Again, in terms of taking up space on YouTube, it's Disney and Warner Media and then these guys. I mean, remember what we learned in the Russian social media operation in 2016 to target our election in 2016 to benefit Trump, right? We learned it both in the criminal indictments against the Russian military intelligence officers who were charged by Robert Mueller. We learned it in the Senate report reviewing how that Russian information operation worked against us. One of their key plays was that they would build up seemingly non-political content. They'd have lots of different avatars, lots of different accounts on lots of different social media platforms, attracting U.S. viewership, attracting likes, attracting followers, all doing stuff that didn't seem to be overtly political at all. It was just designed to get people clicking there, just designed to get into people's feeds. And then when it came time to turn those things operational for the purposes of American political impact, those seemingly non-political channels started pushing out material that was designed to influence the election. And a big part of the impact, you want to capture the maximum number of eyeballs, well, you better have the maximum number of subscribers already looking at your content before you become a political operation. Well, boy, are they doing that now. With the election of 2020 now bearing down upon us, I mean, the Iowa caucuses are 6 weeks away, right? It's Super Bowl Sunday. Then the first Monday in February, the day after Super Bowl Sunday, is the Iowa caucuses. I mean, how prepped are we, really? How prepped are the Democratic candidates and the Democratic Party for contending with a potentially major foreign-based social media operation that this time will be run under the auspices here of a federal government headed up by a president who was just impeached for inviting foreign intervention in the next election and who has explicitly stated that he's good with it? I mean, it's one thing to not be ready because you didn't see it coming. This time we definitely see it coming. But the question is, how much help's the U.S. government going to be under the leadership of President Trump? And how well are the Democrats and the Democratic Party preparing to do their own work on this, particularly if they're not going to get help from the Justice Department under William Barr and from the intelligence agencies under President Trump?
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.